Good morning. This is Dr. Mayorga, and I would like to talk to you a little bit about wellness behavior and the importance of implementing wellness behavior in our lives. And in society today, that's a big thing. Everybody is, and I put everybody in quotation marks because not everybody does this. But the encouragement is to live a healthy lifestyle, eat well, exercise, live longer, look younger, all of those things, which is wonderful. That's great. Who doesn't want to have a healthy lifestyle or be healthy and live till whenever? But from this perspective is from the counseling perspective, and how counselors work with clients, but also how counselors also examine their own wellness behavior. About 15, 20 years ago, it became we began to see it wellness behavior infused into the profession, especially in higher ed when we were teaching counselors in training, and our the ACA, which is the American Counseling Association, revised our ethical code and put in there a standard for wellness behavior and also recognizing impairment. What does that mean? Well, impairment means, do we as counselors recognize when we're not functioning to the best of our ability, where we're not as competent as we need to be? And, a lot of times when we think about impairment, people might think about a devastating illness, but impairment is on a continuum. It could be it could be in the center, it could be on either side, and it just depends on what's going on. It could be as simple as having a migraine headache and deciding not to see your clients because one of our responsibilities when working with our clients is to be present, and to be present takes a lot of energy. And if I have a headache or I have a migraine, I can't be truly present for you because I'm in my migraine headache and I don't feel very well. So is it is it ethical for me to go ahead and see my client and not give them my 100% of being present? So that's that's what impairment looks like for us in the sense of making sure that we recognize and then do something, because ultimately it's about not harming the client. But the same thing applies to us as human persons. I've done a lot of research on wellness behavior within the counseling profession. And one of my very first articles that I wrote, uh, uh, I did this research on wellness behavior for counselors, and I looked at about, between 8 and 10 domains to determine how well they were engaging in that and how that impacted their wellness behavior or just their overall wellness. And one of the things that I found, the results indicated that the younger we are in our career, the more stressed out, the more burned out we are because we're on a tenure track trajectory, or trajectory, I should say. And the first 6 years involves having to do a lot of presentations, having to do a lot of um, writing, publishing articles, being on committees, and everything that we're asked to do to be able to get tenure. So it can be extremely stressful, so much so that I mentor new faculty members, and I've had them ask me if being on tenure track is even worth it because it can be very stressful. And at the end of the 6 years, you're being reviewed by a committee, and you don't know if they're going to review what you've submitted and if they're going to find it applicable for you to receive tenure. So that's just a little information about what I have to do in the field of counseling to be able to stay ethical and to be able to maintain myself in a way that I can continue to see my clients because I that's competency. But in the world, as a human person, it's also important that we review our wellness behavior. And as much as there is out there in reference to exercising, eating well, go to the doctor, get all your exams done, we still tend to not engage in wellness behavior to the degree where it's beneficial for us. And if you want to think about wellness behavior, think about it as being balanced. So we look, from my perspective, I look at myself and also people that will come to me or people that I talk to. I look at their lives from four domains, and then there's little sub domains there. So I look at people on how they're doing psychologically, pardon me, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And in any one of those areas, there's little sub areas. But basically, how are you doing in your psyche? Are you under a lot of stress? Have you had catastrophic events? Or are there ongoing events that prevent you from being able to finally take a breath? You're going 100 miles a minute. Emotionally, are you able to verbalize and process your emotional needs? Or are they so suppressed or oppressed that that is also something that you're not able to either identify or process? And by the way, when I say identify, you'd be surprised at how many people cannot identify emotions. I call it having a flat affect, meaning that it's a straight line. They do not show any kind of emotion, and they believe that that is okay, that they're doing okay, although they cannot tell you what emotion they're feeling when you ask them. What is it that you're experiencing right now? I have a lot of people that come back and tell me, I don't know. Um, and that goes along with, if you have an I don't know as your response, then are you willing to explore to find out how come there's an I don't know? And in the physical, well, that's, do you get up? Do you walk 20 minutes a day? Do you do some kind of activity that gets your heart pumping a little bit? Or do you tend to, you're so exhausted from just living life, from being on the freeway trying to get to work, 3 hours altogether, an hour and a half to get to work, an hour and a half to get back, and then you have other obligations. If you have a significant other, if you have family, you have children, or even if you just have you're independent and you're by yourself, but the commute just drains you. So by the time you get home, you just kind of want to just chill. And of course, then there's the spiritual. A lot of people think that from a spiritual perspective, it has to be mainline religion, and that's not what I'm talking about. I have a lot of people that come in, and their spirituality could be anything, and whatever it is that is spiritual to you. Do you have that? Because research also indicates that we have to be connected to something. So, from a spiritual perspective, are you connected? And and there are actually other researchers that include other things in wellness behavior, or what I would say wellness domains that you need to examine. Do you have a social life? Or are you so isolated that you don't have any connection? Again, it is important. We were not made, research indicates also this, and please feel free to do your own research. I can't quote anybody specifically because I'd be quoting a lot, but I do know that research indicates that we were made to be connected. Isolation is not something that we should do all the time. It it wears on a person, because if you think about, let's just say, monks that live in a monastery, even though they may be, let's say, they're a silent order, they are still connected, and that's the importance, the connection to another human person. So, and also, so what about your environment? Um, is your environment conducive to being stressed less or comfortable, or is it so chaotic that you don't even want to be there? And I know of a lot of people that would rather not come home because their environment is chaotic. And the environment doesn't only mean home, it could be work. It could be any wherever it is that you find yourself. If the environment is chaotic, it's not conducive for you to even be experiencing wellness, because the emotions that you would be experiencing are create what would I say, an uproar inside of you. You want to think of it that way. They're bubbling, and there's no peace or enjoyment or joy in being in the environment. One right now that I believe is hitting our society is financial. I can do everything else. I can exercise and I have a great job, and my environment's pretty good, but I just can't make ends meet. And financially, I'm having a difficult time. And I have had those experiences personally, and I know how difficult that can be. But right now, I'm also dealing with people that come to see me because they're having financial issues, which lead to psychological issues, which lead to emotional issues. So, as you can see, the list is pretty long, and we never think about that. We don't ever break it up into these little sections and review those little sections and apply it to our lives. And so I would encourage you to take time to review these areas and ask what I call the difficult question: am I satisfied? And I call that difficult question because most people don't want to ask it. Uh, I've got, when I work with my clients, and I present them, because I'm very Socratic in my working with my clients, but in my own life too. I'm very Socratic, and that means I ask those difficult questions. And because I would like to think that the only way to get to the answer is to be curious and to explore and to examine those areas that I think need some examination. And so, ooh, pardon me. And that's not going to be edited out because I'm not that savvy. But to ask those difficult questions about your life, I will end with this example. It's actually true. Prior to me becoming a counselor and a counselor educator, I was a nurse, and I still am licensed as a nurse. And I worked for an ear, nose, and throat surgeon for 14 years. And it gave me some status, and I thought I loved it. I was very new when I started working with this doctor. I was and I was young. I was in my 20s, and I worked with him for 14 years. So by the time I decided to leave, I didn't really make a decision to leave. I was pushed out because of my health, because I certainly was not one that practiced wellness behavior. Yeah, I was a very enthusiastic and kept myself very, very busy. I had young children. I was married. I had lots and lots of things on my plate. And toward the end of that career, about 2 years before I left, I knew that I needed to resign. But I couldn't ask myself that question because it was going to be something that I just could not fathom. I thought for one thing, and this can lead into another topic some other day, is identity. My identity was being surgical nurse to this physician, and I got a lot of accolades about that, and I felt very important. I believed I was important, and I could do everything. And I began to, health wise, deteriorate. By the time I did leave, it was because I had to. I had developed physical symptoms of an illness, and I didn't know what to do. And it taught me something. it taught me that I was replaceable. See, in the whole thought pattern and about this particular situation was that no one could do the job the way I was doing it. And so therefore I was indispensable. But I learned a very difficult lesson. I am replaceable. And I mean that as soon as I gave notice, the doctor turned around and hired somebody else. And from that moment on, I decided that I was going to focus on taking care of myself. Because when we don't take care of ourselves, it dominoes. And those people that we do care about begin to also experience the effects of our deciding not to practice wellness behavior. And I want to preface this by saying that you need to balance also when you're practicing wellness behavior, especially in the physical. I've got so many examples of people that engage in the physical and take it to the nth degree, and then they end up also having problems with their health. So, a word to the wise, the or a word for the day, let's do this, is balance. And you can ask yourself throughout the day, am I balanced? And if you're not, then do whatever you need to do to tweak it so that you can be as balanced as possible. Your psyche will thank you, and your physical body will thank you. And overall, you will begin to see a difference in your life in the emotions. And I think your emotions will thank you too. All right. So have a good day.